Welcome back. President Trump has recently added a 10% tariff on certain countries in the EU regarding his ambitions to get control of Greenland. Joining us to discuss the latest in tariffs is economist Michael Busler. Good to have you with us this morning, Michael. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent wants Europe to remain calm and not retaliate against these U.S. tariffs over Greenland. Do you expect retaliation?
Well, probably. So a lot of times, many times, Trump uses the threat of tariffs as a negotiating tool. And I think that's what the case is here. He's trying to get control of Greenland for national security purposes. And he's been talking about it for some time. The Europeans are sort of dragging their feet with this, and Trump wants this to occur as quickly as possible. He has a fear of China and Russia expanding. So what he wants to do is create a sense of urgency. And by threatening the tariffs, it will bring them to the table sooner. And hopefully this will get resolved without any tariffs going either way. It remains to be seen what happens.
Certainly. And another escalation of sorts, this is more related to the Board of Peace, but President Trump also threatening now 200% tariff on French wine, in part due to Macron declining to join that Board of Peace after being invited. How do you see that playing out?
So Trump is setting up this Board of Peace. It's almost like a National Security Council in the UN. So he wants the major players to be there. He's even invited Putin to join that too. Now he's asked for a large fee to be on that board, and I think that's part of what France's problem is. I believe he's asked for $1 billion fee to be on that board, and then the money collected would be used to help Gaza reconstruct itself. I'm not sure how that's going to play out either. It's very difficult to tell with President Trump what his end game is, and he puts on these requests to try to create this sense of urgency to bring people to the table and let's try to get this done. He'll negotiate something. He is a master negotiator. So while we're going through the negotiations, there's a lot of pushback, but in the end, he usually comes up with something that's a good outcome. Both sides agree to it. They shake hands and they walk away friendly. Remember, in his first term, he went into NATO and he said, look, you're not all paying your fair share. If you don't pay your fair share, the U.S. is going to pull out. Well, I don't think he ever wanted the U.S. to pull out, but the threat of pulling out encouraged those countries to increase their defense budget, which they now have. So all this is part of negotiations. We just have to sort of wait and see until these negotiations are finalized. Usually, President Trump is able to work something out beneficial for everybody, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, certainly some of the EU leaders seem shaken by some of these latest moves, but perhaps that's all part of it. We've seen Macron now calling to apply a trade bazooka, a kind of law that they have in place to try to prevent too much control in trade there. What do you think of that?
Well, so Macron, I guess, is trying to negotiate with Trump also. Some of the things he said, I don't think he really wants to follow through with either, like this bazooka. But nonetheless, they want to. The French want to show that they're not afraid to stand up to Trump, and they will negotiate with him, but that they have some tools in their toolbox that they can use also. Again, I think in the end, with all this back and forth and all the negativism going on here, I think in the end, Trump will negotiate something that is fair to both sides and works.
And so in the meantime, do you see this tension that seems to be forming a problem, or it's more of a productive process?
Well, in the short term, it looks like a problem, especially we have longtime allies that we've worked with very closely throughout the years. So I think what all this is just some temporary uh, push on both sides to try to get into a very strong negotiating position. One other thing, we're still waiting for the Supreme Court to make their decision on whether Trump can use tariffs at all. And I think maybe Trump is trying to get as much done before that decision comes out, just in case it's not favorable to him.
Yeah, and we have seen Trump's top trade negotiator saying just very recently that the administration will pivot and find another way to apply tariffs if the Supreme
Yes.
Court strikes him down. What kind of tools do they have, and what would the effect be, if anything different, if they do have to pivot?
So I've talked to a couple legal scholars, and both of them say they think the Supreme Court is going to rule against Trump. Um, that's going to create massive chaos, at least in the short term. If that means he's got to return all the revenue collected from the tariffs, that will be very difficult because you can't tell exactly who paid the tariffs. Look, some of it resulted in higher prices on goods. I mean, the overall inflation rate does appear to be affected, but some goods did go up in price, which means that the consumers paid part of the tariff. Some of the tariff was probably paid by the middleman, and some of it was paid by the country producing the product. How you're going to divide all that up and determine who gets what will be very difficult. More importantly, Trump uses the threat of tariffs for national security. He's ended 7 or 8 wars because he goes in and he says to the countries, listen, if you don't resolve this, I'm going to put such heavy tariffs, you won't be able to sell anything into the US. And practically every country at least depends somewhat on their sales to the US. So using the threat of tariffs, he's been able to reach some good national security goals. If the Supreme Court takes that away from him, he's going to lose a tool. The original question was, do they have anything else? Secretary Bessent has said there are a couple of other ways they can go about doing this. He hasn't been real specific, but there are some laws that he can pull out that may allow him to use this tariff as a tool. The best thing would be if the Supreme Court ruled in Trump's favor, which again, I don't think is likely, but if they did rule in Trump's favor, he'll be able to use the tariffs very positively as he has in the past. And the results are always very good for Americans. And he's trying to put America first.
Well, I'll certainly be watching all of this very closely. Thank you so much for your time and your insights this morning, Michael Busler.
Always my pleasure.